This man tried to eliminate El Chapo's son, but ended up eliminating the wrong son. As a form of revenge, he was brutally attacked and executed. Surprisingly, this was not the only violent retaliation carried out by traffickers. For example, Miriam Rodríguez, who, after losing her daughter, decided to seek justice and managed to capture the criminals. However, her pursuit was cut short when she herself was eliminated shortly after. In northern Mexico, in the state of Tamaulipas, a woman decided to directly confront one of the country's most dangerous organizations. Miriam Elizabeth Rodríguez Martinez, born in San Fernando, became a central figure in a struggle that crosses borders and challenges cartels in the search for the missing. In 2012, her daughter Karen Alejandra Salinas Rodríguez was kidnapped by members of the Los Zetas cartel. 2 years later, Miriam located the young woman's remains in a clandestine grave. From that moment on, she began to investigate those involved on her own. Without any police training, but with determination and improvised resources, she pursued suspects in different regions of the country. She assumed false identities, used disguises, and carried weapons. She gathered evidence, confronted members of the organization, and handed over information to the authorities. Several of those accountable were apprehended. Nevertheless, a few managed to evade capture. Miriam, despite facing numerous threats, persevered, not only in her personal mission, but also by establishing the collective of the disappeared individuals of San Fernando. The organization, composed of families impacted by organized crime, broadened its activities and became integrated into a national network. The city of San Fernando, where she lived, is among the places most affected by the conflict between criminal factions. With around 6,000 people missing just in the state of Tamaulipas, the region is marked by mass graves, confrontations, and institutional neglect. The kidnapping and elimination of Karen was not an isolated case, but the starting point of an unexpected reaction. Miriam also prevented another kidnapping, that of her own husband. Upon noticing the suspicious activity, she pursued the suspects and alerted the police, who made arrests. However, the response from the authorities remained inconsistent. Despite seeking protection from multiple entities, Miriam was not adequately assisted. On the evening of May 10, 2017, a date on which Mother's Day is celebrated in Mexico, armed individuals forcefully entered her residence. Miriam was hit and did not survive her injuries. She lost her life on the way to the hospital. International pressure increased. Organizations like the United Nations and Amnesty International insisted on conducting an independent investigation. National organizations criticized the omissions and urged for assurances to be provided for families under threat. Until now, the criminals have not been found. Miriam Rodríguez became a symbol of an unexpected reaction. Amidst impunity, she directly challenged a cartel, leading a movement formed by victims who decided to wait no longer for answers. On August 25, 2011, Monterrey, the capital of the state of Nuevo León in Mexico, was the scene of one of the most violent episodes related to drug trafficking in the country. The Casino Royale, located in a commercial area of the city, became the target of a deliberate attack. The action was attributed to members of the Los Zetas cartel, a group involved in extortion activities and reprisals against commercial establishments. That particular afternoon, an armed group forcefully stormed into the establishment, demanding an immediate evacuation. Subsequently, they dispersed fuel throughout various sections of the building and ignited the fire. The fire spread quickly, producing intense smoke that led to the deaths of 52 people, most of whom succumbed to inhaling toxic gases. Many of the victims were trapped in bathrooms and internal rooms while trying to escape. Investigations revealed that the underlying motive for the attack was the casino owner's refusal to comply with the financial demands imposed by the cartel. This episode was regarded as a direct act of reprisal, a method commonly employed by criminal organizations to assert territorial dominance and showcase their strength in the presence of potential adversaries. Images acquired by the authorities depicted the perpetrators as they filled large containers with gasoline at a nearby fueling station. In the subsequent days, a total of 17 suspects were detained, out of which only 5 individuals were eventually convicted for the illegal possession of firearms, not for direct participation in the attack. The judicial proceedings, even after a full decade, remained without any convictions. Families of the victims encountered lengthy bureaucratic procedures in their pursuit of answers and reparations. The facts indicated state negligence, from the disappearance of case files to the disrespect shown towards makeshift memorials at the site of the old casino, which was demolished years after the tragedy. The attack on Casino Royale was one of the most serious incidents on Mexican soil since the beginning of the national offensive against organized crime in 2006. The government declared 3 days of official mourning, and $1 million reward was announced in exchange for information about the perpetrators. So far, 5 people have been arrested. In March 2011, the municipality of Allende, in the Mexican state of Coahuila, was the scene of one of the most devastating actions attributed to the Los Zetas cartel. For 3 days, from March 18 to 20, approximately 60 armed individuals invaded the city and neighboring areas, such as Villa Unión and Piedras Negras, carrying out a series of kidnappings, destructions, and eliminations. The primary motivation stemmed from the suspicion of treachery by certain members within the organization, following the disclosure of sensitive intelligence regarding the leaders, Miguel Ángel Trevino Morales and Omar Trevino Morales, to U.S. authorities. Convinced that internal collaborators had supplied crucial information to law enforcement authorities, the leaders commanded a retaliatory strike against the supposed informants and their entire families. The perpetrators demolished residences and business establishments utilizing explosives, manual tools, and even heavy machinery. Numerous victims' remains were incinerated in metallic drums, rendering subsequent identification exceedingly challenging. It is estimated that between 28 and 300 people disappeared during the attack, although the exact number remains uncertain due to the scarcity of official records. Subsequent investigations unveiled that certain members of the local police forces actively collaborated with the criminals, thereby facilitating the kidnappings and obstructing rescue operations. Furthermore, reports indicate that officials at multiple tiers of government were notified about the imminent violence, but did not succeed in executing effective preventive actions. The governmental response to the massacre was notably limited. It was not until several years later, in 2014, that the state government commenced a formal investigation, which led to only a few arrests and no substantial convictions connected to the events in Allende. In the year 2019, representatives from both the federal and state governments formally issued a public apology to the families of the victims, acknowledging the institutional shortcomings and failures that permitted the tragedy to occur. On the date of January 23, 2022, the city of Tijuana, which is situated in the state of Baja California, documented yet another instance of deadly violence targeting media professionals within Mexico. Lourdes Maldonado Lopez, a journalist with decades of experience, was found lifeless inside her vehicle, parked in front of her own residence, located in the Santa Fe neighborhood. With years of experience in local and national broadcasting, Lourdes focused on covering political issues and legal disputes involving public officials and corporate figures. In the years leading up to the crime, she had initiated a labor lawsuit against the corporation Media Sport of Mexico, which is owned by Jaime Bonilla Valdez, the former governor of the state. After a long dispute, she won the legal case just days before its conclusion. In 2019, during a presidential press conference, Lourdes directly informed President Andrés Manuel López Obrador that she feared for her physical safety, requesting formal protection. The request ultimately resulted in the journalist being included in the federal mechanism for the protection of human rights defenders and journalists, yet the support unfortunately did not prevent the tragic outcome. The investigations indicated that 3 individuals were involved in the execution. The suspects were apprehended in Tijuana in early February, based on security camera footage, vehicle movement analysis, and phone records. The operation involved collaboration between the State Attorney General's office, the Department of Security, and the National Guard. The detainees faced formal charges for their involvement in planning and executing the crime. The elimination occurred in a context of increasing intimidation against communicators in the country. In January 2022, Lourdes was the 3rd journalist eliminated in the national territory. The pattern of frequent attacks against professionals in the field indicates the presence of organized networks that aim to silence reports and investigations especially when they involve structures with economic power or political ties. The conclusion of Lourdes Maldonado's life ignited demonstrations in numerous Mexican cities. Press organizations, international entities, and fellow professionals in the field called for comprehensive protection measures, as well as complete accountability for all individuals involved. On April 6, 2015, one of the deadliest actions directed against Mexican security forces was recorded in the state of Jalisco. A convoy of the Fuerza Única Regional, an elite tactical unit of the state police, was traveling on a road that connects Puerto Vallarta to Guadalajara when it was surprised by a coordinated attack. The confrontation occurred in a rural area, in a difficult-to-access section near the municipality of San Sebastián del Oeste. The outcome of the operation was devastating. 15 officers were killed and 5 were injured. According to the initial findings of the authorities, those responsible for the ambush were members of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, a group considered one of the most organized and violent in the country. The motivation indicated by the investigations was a direct retaliation against the recent offensives by the state government against the leadership of the criminal organization. Days before the attack, police forces had captured influential cartel members during operations in Guadalajara, in addition to thwarting an attack against the then Public Security Commissioner of Jalisco, Francisco Alejandro Solorio. The attempted execution occurred on March 30th, intensifying the tension between the security forces and the criminal group. In response, members of the cartel reportedly organized several simultaneous attacks. In addition to the attack on the Fuerza Única convoy, on that same day, the police chief of the city of Zacualco de Torres was eliminated under similar circumstances. The assault in Jalisco transpired merely a few weeks subsequent to another violent incident, wherein 5 federal police officers tragically lost their lives during an operation conducted on March 19th. The sequence of events suggests a carefully orchestrated escalation by the organization, with the intention to intimidate and showcase their capability to respond in the face of governmental offensives. Following the ambush, federal units were swiftly mobilized to significantly reinforce security measures in the region. Roadblocks were strategically established, helicopters conducted continuous flyovers, and patrol operations were notably intensified. Still, those responsible for the action escaped. The judicial response was limited, and even years later, few involved were brought to trial. Culiacán, the capital of the Mexican state of Sinaloa, was the scene of an attack that eliminated one of the most active names in investigative journalism in the country. On May 15, 2017, Javier Valdez Cárdenas, at the age of 50, was executed by multiple gunshots in broad daylight, just a few meters from the headquarters of the weekly newspaper Rio Doce, which he founded in 2003. The attack, carried out by armed individuals who intercepted him, added to a series of lethal actions against journalists in the national territory. Graduated in sociology from the Autonomous University of Sinaloa, Valdez began his career in the press in the 1990s with stints at outlets such as Canal 3, Noroeste, and the newspaper La Jornada. His career was solidified with the creation of Rio Doce, a publication focused on covering security, corruption, and drug trafficking in one of the regions with the highest presence of criminal organizations in Mexico. Over the years, he published several books addressing the dynamics of organized crime, including the involvement of young people in drug trafficking and the daily lives of women connected to cartel leaders. In 2009, a distinctive series on eliminations in Ciudad Juárez culminated in an assault on the newspaper's office utilizing explosives. No individual was identified as accountable. Even under constant risk, Valdez remained focused on sensitive investigations. His conduct led him to receive several awards, such as the International Press Freedom Award in 2011. Valdez's execution occurred amid the intensification of internal disputes within the Sinaloa cartel, exacerbated by the arrest of Joaquim El Chapo Guzman and Damaso Lopez Núñez. These alterations generated instabilities that amplified the utilization of aggressive measures to silence adversaries and critics. United in matrimony with fellow journalist and human rights advocate Griselda Triana, Valdez had earlier encountered threats. Even so, he refused to abandon his role. His demise reinforced alarming statistics. At that time, Mexico ranked among the countries with the highest number of journalists killed, second only to regions in declared war. San Fernando, a municipality located in the state of Tamaulipas, northeastern Mexico, became the center of one of the most impactful actions related to human trafficking and organized crime in the 2010s. In August 2010, a truck driver was surprised by a survivor, wounded by gunfire, who was walking to a naval base to seek help. This account led to the uncovering of one of the most lethal episodes on the migration route within Mexican territory. On a rural property situated in the community of El Ruiz Achal, federal forces discovered what was left of 72 migrants. The unfortunate victims originated from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Ecuador, and Brazil. Both men and women were journeying toward the United States border. The primary objective was to traverse the Mexican territory in pursuit of improved living conditions. The majority were abducted after declining coercive recruitment propositions by the cartel accountable for the region, the notorious criminal organization known as Los Zetas. The heavily armed and systematically organized kidnappers intercepted the group of migrants near the vicinity of San Fernando and forcibly took them to a secluded warehouse. There, the individuals were kept under constant surveillance, thoroughly interrogated, and after refusing to cooperate with the demands, were tragically executed. Only 3 people survived. One of them managed to escape, even though injured, and reported the case to the authorities. During the investigations, several suspects were detained. However, only some of those involved were held accountable. The official response was marked by delays, forensic failures, and a lack of complete identification of the victims. The Attorney General's office took charge of the case but faced major structural hurdles in providing justice to the families. In the following years, more graves were found in the same area, revealing a systematic pattern of violence against migrants. The human remains, which were clandestinely interred, indicated the existence of other comparable actions that were executed by criminal organizations that financially exploited the migratory movement. In August 2010, Israel Rincon Martinez, known as El Guacho, a member of the Beltran-Leyva cartel, was tasked with eliminating Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, the son of Joaquim El Chapo Guzman. However, the action led to the death of Marcial Fernandez, son of Manuel Fernandez Valencia, linked to the Sinaloa cartel. The failed execution prompted an immediate reaction from the Sinaloa cartel. Rincon Martinez was apprehended and subjected to rigorous interrogations at a ranch situated near Culiacan, Sinaloa. Throughout the procedure, Damaso Lopez Núñez, also known as El Licenciado, was present and subsequently recounted the occurrences in court. The interrogation was meticulously documented in a video recording lasting around 4 minutes, which was presented as evidence during El Chapo's trial in the year 2019. Within the footage, Rincon Martinez is seen visibly injured, wearing soiled clothing and restrained with handcuffs. He reports having been pressured to choose between the Beltran-Leyva and the Sinaloa cartel, opting for the former after being coerced by Arturo Beltran-Leyva. After the interrogation, Rincon Martinez was executed. In March 2011, the city of Allende, in the Mexican state of Coahuila, was the scene of one of the most impactful acts of retaliation by the Los Zetas cartel. The operation was ordered by Miguel Ángel Treviño Morales, known as Z40, who was then the leader of the criminal organization. The underlying motivation was the strong suspicion of betrayal by 2 members of the cartel, Héctor El Negro Moreno and Luis Laguiche Garza, who were alleged to have collaborated with U.S. authorities, providing crucial information that led to the exposure of the Zetas cartel's internal communications. The response was both swift and devastating. Approximately 40 vehicles filled with armed men invaded Allende, closed off all access points, and initiated a series of coordinated kidnappings. The victims were not restricted solely to the supposed traitors, but also encompassed family members, friends, and even employees who were associated with them. Residences were ransacked, set ablaze, and completely demolished. The operation extended over several days and reached neighboring municipalities, such as Piedras Negras, Muscas, and Sabinas. It is estimated that between 200 and 300 people disappeared during this period. The magnitude of the operation and the absence of intervention by local authorities highlighted the control the cartel exerted in the region. Only years later, with the decline of the Zetas' influence, did details about the events begin to emerge, revealing the extent of the violence and impunity that characterized the episode. Miguel Angel Trevino Morales, who was born in Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas, embarked on his criminal career at a relatively young age, initially joining local gangs before eventually rising through the ranks of the cartel. His leadership was distinguished by exceedingly extreme methods and the systematic elimination of rivals and dissenters. In July 2013, he was apprehended by Mexican authorities and, in February 2025, extradited to the United States, where he faces numerous charges related to the trafficking of illicit substances and various other activities. On May 13, 2012, Mexican authorities discovered 49 human remains along Federal Highway 40 in the vicinity of Cadereyta Jimenez in the state of Nuevo León. The victims, 43 men and 6 women, were found without heads, hands, and feet, making identification challenging. The remains were packed in plastic bags, showing clear signs of extreme violence. It is widely believed that the heinous crimes transpired up to 48 hours prior to the discovery, possibly in an entirely different location, with the human remains being subsequently transported to the final disposal site. A message that was attributed to the Los Zetas cartel was discovered at the site, claiming responsibility for the massacre. Nevertheless, the group subsequently denied any involvement through banners that were placed in various cities, suggesting that the Gulf Cartel was actually responsible. The Mexican authorities, after investigations, confirmed that Los Zetas perpetrated the attack. The massacre occurred in a context of intensified confrontations between rival cartels for control of trafficking routes and strategic territories. The region of Nuevo León, especially Cadereyta Jimenez, has become a stage for violent disputes between Los Zetas and the Gulf Cartel. It is believed that the attack was either a retaliation or a show of force in the drug trafficking scene. In response, the Mexican government launched Operation Rastrillo, mobilizing military forces to contain the movement of criminals in the region. During the actions, Jesus Daniel Elizondo Ramirez, known as El Loco, was captured, identified as the local leader of Los Zetas, and suspected of orchestrating the massacre. Despite the extensive efforts, the identification of the victims remained quite limited. By the month of July in the year 2012, only 19 human remains had been successfully recognized, including citizens from Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Guatemala. The potential that the victims were immigrants in transit to the United States was taken into consideration, but it was not confirmed. Please remember to subscribe to watch more videos similar to this one.